Welcome to the Parker Podcast Collection.
I suck, you suck, I suck at Call of Duty.
Welcome to the Not Playing Podcast. My name's Rob Howard, and today I'm joined by
Marcus Hurley
and Will. So, in the interest of being relevant, we should probably talk about a game that came out recently, and that seems to be your department lately, Will.
Yeah, I don't know why. I've just decided it was refreshing. There's a post-apocalyptic shooter that came out, and having only played Metro and the new Far Cry this year, when it comes to the new games, I fancied some post-apocalyptic shooter-ness. So I picked up Rage 2. And I have to say, first thing is the whole furnishing of post-apocalypse. What I would say is Far Cry is kind of 18 years after the explosion. They ignore the whole thing. It's just an excuse to throw in a riot of colour. No radiation, couple of scaly mutant animals, but ignores the whole apocalypse bit entirely. Metro is entirely fixated on the fact that it's nuclear fallout and the whole world is doomed and everything's recovering and stuff. Whereas Rage 2 is very much the Mad Max-esque world. It's obviously from the same software house, Avalanche I think it is, that did the Mad Max game. And
it's a co-development, isn't it, between id and
that's
Avalanche.
It, yeah. And what I would say is, again, it's not fixated on the apocalypse, it's just the setting. There's no, like, apocalypse mentions particularly, or apocalypse theme plots, or finding old pre-war stuff, or anything like that. It's just what it is. So it's quite interestingly calling the three post-apocalyptic, I find in my experience, they're all very different games, very different landscapes. The only thing they all have in common, really, is that you're fighting people and mutated things. But right, people and monsters, not an unusual mix in sci-fi, in fantasy, in anything.
No. Especially post-apocalyptic world.
That said, I'm finding Rage 2. I'm about 18 hours in, and I could have finished it hours ago. It's quite a short game for what we regard as an open world game these days, particularly having done my 60 to 80 hours in Assassin's Creed. It's quite short, it's quite punchy, and it's incredibly good fun. I was genuinely surprised. So the reviews came out were all very middle of the road and sort of justifiably so. There's nothing new there. But and the driving's kind of dull, but the gunplay is superb. It's so satisfying. You find this bandit outpost, for example, and you go in and you're encouraged to go in guns blazing. Because like the remake of Doom, where you had to get in close, and like Bloodborne, the system's there where you only really heal if you're in close and doing damage. You're encouraged to go really aggressive. There's a similar thing there. When you kill an enemy, they drop these crystals, and if you leave those crystals for too long, you don't get the full benefits from them. They kind of have a timer to them. So if you kill an enemy and you're on top of them and you go in and grab it, you can heal more, and you take a lot of damage, but you keep healing. And it's a really good system to encourage you to get in their face. It is not a cover shooter. It's not a strategic shooter. It's a straight in, balls out, guns out, whack them in the face kind of setup, which I find deeply satisfying. Like I say, some of the best gunplay since I did Wolfenstein 2, I would say. Genuinely satisfying. So, and actually not too long a story. Well, I say story. There is no real story that I figured out, but the powers, the moves you get, like this, you get armored enemies, but you unlock various powers by finding these things called arcs. And in the arc, you'll unlock a new power or a new weapon. There's some silly guns. You can shoot these people full of these bullets, and then you aim your cursor at maybe a wall or a ceiling or some cans or something. You right-click on that, and you get this gravity attraction. So if you filled someone full of these gravity darts, you right-click and it will slam them into that, and it's incredibly entertaining. Although generally I use the shotgun. But yeah, lots of fun powers, lots of fun shooting, lots of silly weapons. I quite like the gun where you can fill them full of bullets, right-click, and they just catch fire massively, just as everything else around them does. The powers you can upgrade, so you look at the explosive barrels and you just focus on it. and they blow shit up. And it's just a game about blowing stuff up. The reviews were focused on, well, the driving's not that good. It's all right. It gets you from point A to B. But it's probably not. I mean, I paid 36 quid for it on a pre-order, which was probably slightly more than I would. But when it hits £20 for something to kill a couple of days worth of gaming, something to kill 15 hours worth of gaming, I would absolutely recommend it. Loved it to bits.
Was that on PlayStation or PC?
I played it on PlayStation 4. I think it's on all the consoles other than Switch. So it's PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. It's a multi-platform job.
Yeah, I shouldn't imagine it'll be long before that comes to Switch, because they have got that id Tech working okay with Wolfenstein, so they might port it eventually.
That would be genuinely interesting. That would be a very fun handheld game.
Yeah, it's got driving in it, hasn't it?
Yes, and it's very similar driving wise to the Mad Max games, except the first car you're given has guns on it, like serious guns. And doesn't blow up. It doesn't auto repair, but you get out, you use your special power of focus on it, and you can repair it. And you can upgrade the car as you take on convoys. You do certain challenges. You get car parts. You can upgrade your car using car parts. So you can put in different kinds of cannons and mortars and improved armor and the usual stuff. But I've ignored the car personally. Never been a driving game fan. I use the car to get from A to B, jump out the car, and shoot things in the face. The giant mutants are genuinely entertaining. There's some huge behemoth things that are genuinely quite tough fights. And,
Right.
So you're kind of like a really violent Uber driver. You just get in the car, A to B, hop
exactly. Well, you're more an Uber passenger, really, I suppose, because you don't normally see the Uber drivers get out. You're an Uber bastard.
And so, what are the missions like? Are you just kind of going into sort of dungeons and things, or is there like any kind of like zone capture, or is it just missions?
Actually, it's an odd setup. So you meet these three people. I mean, the plot itself is really thin. Waffle thin. But you basically, you get this big opening scene, and then they say, go out to the wilderness and find these three people. Each of these people, they give you an initial mission, and then they say, right, this one says go out and clear a load of bandit camps. This one says go and do a load of these things, and you level up with experience. You do this, and to get to the end game, you've basically got to do enough of these fairly camp clearing missions. Basically going through the map and doing stuff. And then once you've leveled up with all three of them, you just kind of reach the end game. But I kind of ignored that anyway. I didn't even know. I hadn't even met one of them before I'd leveled up enough to go straight into the end game, if you see what I mean. Because I was just going around the map and go, oh, that place looks interesting. I'll blow that shit up.
So there's no like gatekeeping of the finale or whatever they call it. There's a lot of like, I found that in Assassin's Creed recently, like it's kind of like level restricted. So you sort of, I mean, you can take it on if you want at a lower level, but they sort of, there's always like that. Oh no, actually, one of the sequences doesn't open up until you've done a load of the grinding side stuff. So there's nothing like that in this.
No, not really. You'll get a difficulty rating on each place you come across between like 1 and 10, and you clearly, if you've just started the game, you don't go for the level 8 and 9 stuff. I've been mopping up whatever I come to now, except for these weird things where you got these giant defensive robots. It's just a single thing, and they just melt me. I'm sure there's a tactic, but I couldn't be bothered to internet it to find out how. But you just go around mopping things up. If it looks too hard, you come back to it. You can tell on the map if you've completed the objective or not. But it's just quite good fun, because now and again you get something really random. You think it's a bandit den, but then there's this giant mutant in there to fight. And the whole thing is you're going for loot, because every time you mop up one of those, you get these arc chests which you open up, and those help you increase your power. But it doesn't feel grindy to me, because the game isn't too long to be grindy. Like I say, from the reviewers, they were saying they did start to finish in 8 hours. I've done probably twice that in the game. Enjoyed it, taken my time. I could finish it any moment now. So I can't tell you what the end sequence is like, but I'm just having fun.
Cool. So there's quite a lot of the gameplay is really cool. The exploration sounds interesting, but perhaps not too much to write home about as far as story goes.
That's it. There's nothing particularly original there. Like I say, the gunplay is great, but there's lots of games with great gunplay. I can understand why it didn't review brilliantly. It is not Game of the Year in any way, shape or form. Story weak. Gameplay incredibly good fun on the shooting side. Driving bit okay. Open world, people complain about that. It's fine. You drive around. Yeah. You drive. You see a thing. You get out of your car. You blow the thing up. You get back in your car. You go to the next thing. I don't know why people get so upset about open worlds. It's just these, if you put it in a corridor, people would complain because it was in a corridor.
Yeah. I don't know if I've heard many, really hostile reactions about this game. It just seems like everyone's just kind of it's fine. And kind of some people are a little bit over that line. Some people are a little bit lower, a bit meh about it. But so far, so good. It sounds fine. I did hear today on the DLC podcast, someone was on there saying about how we've just kind of reached that part of the life cycle of the console where there's a lot of just games coming out that are games that aren't the second coming of Christ or anything. We had a lot of that last year.
That's it. I mean, I know this guy, and basically, unless it gets a score of 85 or something on Metacritic, he'll just completely dismiss it. Won't even have a go at it.
Sounds like a dick.
He does, doesn't he?
No, I just have to. It's just my attitude is that there's so much good shit out there. There's no real need to settle for less than amazing. So I just prioritise that sort of stuff. So
no, I completely agree. But this is a relatively short experience. This isn't launching into another Assassin's Creed, for example. No. This is the Meg of the games world, I think.
Yeah, I think that's that sounds like
this exactly is a Jason Statham film, right? It is not a critical hit, but you watch it, you're going to have fun. And that is what Rage is.
Yeah, that sums it, that crystallises it in my mind. Having not played it.
Rage seems like if you've ever seen the trailer for Hobbs and Shaw.
Yeah.
It's stupid, it's fun, but it's not meant to stick around. It's just meant to be a big flash, explosive pan, and that's it.
That's it. Like I say, you get into this bandit base, you've got all your powers, and you just go straight in going, I'm not going to try it. You don't want to sit back and snipe. There's no benefit in that. You just go in and you've got these massive fights and you're chucking grenade and you're throwing this weird boomerang where you power it up, you take out several people, but while the boomerang's in the air, you're using your special powers to leap in the air and suck people in and punch down, and then you land and you pull out your shotgun. You're out of shells, but you've powered up, so the moment that weapon is empty, it automatically pulls the next one with a full clip and empties that into them. That drops some health, you move on to the next guys. It's really quite good, fun, intense fighting. I love it.
It sounds more like an Avalanche game than an id game. And they're a studio that I've always thought of as creators of what sound like really fun open worlds that I just don't have time for. With the exception being the Mad Max game, which I finished and put a good 30 or so hours into. So I'm not completely outruling this, but I'll probably wait for it to get a bit cheaper.
The thing with the Mad Max game is it had a few interesting characters, like Chum Bucket, like some of the missions. What they've lost here is the story and the mission format behind it. And there is some, but I've been skipping through the cutscenes and bits and pieces just because it's just... I normally enjoy the cutscenes and stories in any game, but to be fair... Before I played it, the game I'd just finished and completed was God of War. So it's a really hard... and I've played some great games in the last year or so. But this was still good fun. It was just as much fun as Spider-Man in its own way, I would say.
Cool. Okay. Well, I've been playing something that involves a bit of driving and stuff as well. But it's probably not what you expect. Basically, I just finished the F1 documentary on Netflix.
Oh, I just hoped you were going to go into Everybody's Golf or something, because that would not be the driving I was expecting, Rob. But
no, sorry. So, I just finished the F1 documentary on Netflix, and so I thought I'd have a little investigation of what the state of play was with F1 games, because I did used to enjoy them quite a lot.
Yeah, I remember,
back in the day. And so, Codemasters have kind of been the custodians of this franchise for the last few years. And I saw that the reviews for F1 2018 were quite good. So I looked on the PlayStation Store. I saw that it was on sale. And while I haven't yet taken the plunge, I did notice that they had a demo on there. So I thought I'd give that a shot. So I queued that up while I was at work yesterday. And when I turned on my PlayStation, it was there. So I had a quick go on it this afternoon, and it's pretty cool. They go into a lot of detail, like on the whole politics of the whole team setup. Because one of the most interesting things that I learned whilst watching this documentary, which I enjoyed a lot, was that there's this kind of rivalry between the members of the team.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird because, like, they're supposed to be. They're working for the same team, yet they are the fiercest rivals because the only point of differential is the car. So they are basically being judged against one another. Also, there's always the danger that a team may end up getting bought out or go bankrupt, and then some fat cat will come along and go, "Oh, my son's an F1 driver." Now there's only one slot that they both have to fight for the next season, if you see what I mean. And this is a sport where there are only 20 seats in the world. So they are like, they really have to perform.
It's the number 1, number 2 slot, isn't it? Yeah.
So basically, I am now looking at this game through the lens of all the drama. And it seems like they are putting some of that into the game. Because,
really?
like before you take your first practice lap, you end up chatting to this girl and this journalist, and you get like, not at that point, but I understand later in the game, you get like multiple choice questions. So you sort of get to play through it like a bit of an RPG. Because he says, be careful what you say to the media, because that can have, you don't want to upset your teammates or the guy who's the boss of that team, sort of thing. So, and so this is like FIFA. So you've got all of the correct, drivers and teams, and you can modify your car in different ways. And also, the other thing that I really liked was that I was driving along, and you've got like radio contact with the guys back at the pit, and that comes through your controller. And I was like, "Oh my god, there's like a little radio thing coming on, like through the controller." Like
that's one of my favourite things about the PS4 controller. Is it was even in Borderlands and that sort of thing. Just you pick up an audio log, and the audio log plays through your controller while you're carrying on. That's brilliant.
So
it's a nice touch.
Yeah. So with the Premier League wrapping up recently, I found a new sport to get into, and while I'll be following,
you're not the Rob we knew.
No, I know. Well, I don't know what this is. Yeah, I mean, this is a longer conversation for another time, perhaps. But essentially, I'm following along with the F1 now.
Wow.
And but I'm gonna give the F1 2018 game, because that's now currently on sale for about £12 on the PlayStation Store. So I'm going to see how I get on with that before I jump in and start playing with the current crop of racers. Yeah. But I may well have bought. We'll see how I go. I may get a bit obsessed and start and actually stump up for the more up to date, because I don't think that's actually out yet, or maybe at the end of the season it's out.
Well, they sometimes, I can't remember if they go ahead a year or back a year. I can't remember. It's one of those things where at the start of the year they'll bring out a game and it'll be like 2019 or 2020.
I think it's normally the end of the season.
Maybe they. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's FIFA 19 is out now, and it's FIFA 20 that's out next. Yeah. Because it's like the end of the season they name it by, I think, sometimes. So.
Well, you mentioned the RPG element. That's quite cool, because I used to play a lot of the really old Toka Touring Car Championship games by Codemasters. Way back in the day, probably like PS2 era. And then they brought out one called Toka Race Driver. and that gave you the RPG element where you rose up through the ranks and stuff and had to prove yourself, and you could talk to the press as you got better races and everything else, and you could create upsets in the team, and they brought out loads from that. So I guess they've just been merging that into the Formula 1 games for the past few years. Cause I've not played a Formula 1 game in so long. I used to love them.
I'll be honest, Codemasters, the games I remember the most were the Dizzy games on the Spectrum.
Oh, yeah. What are you going to say,
a little
Dirt?
bit after that, but not quite.
What are you going to say, Colin McRae? Dirt, that's the other big franchise they've got, isn't it?
They were amazing as well, Colin McRae.
Dizzy, though. Dizzy needs to come back. There's the only egg with boxing gloves that I ever really liked.
I think there was a Kickstarter for that, actually. A little
Probably
while back.
was, yeah.
Don't know if it actually got anywhere.
No, that would be awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my only real contribution as far as new things I've played.
When we did probably the last podcast actually, and we've been to EGX Res, and there were a couple of games we played that we mentioned. Seeing as I have my Switch and I've now got a nasty commute, I picked up a couple of the ones we did mention that we had a little tangle with. Honourable mentions for me: Yakuza 0, which Marcus mentioned at the time.
Katana
Zero. Sorry, sorry.
I've still been rubbish and not picked that up yet, but I definitely want to.
But I have, and I've completed it, and it's a wonderful little game. A little disappointingly short. I mean, there's a couple of hours. There's a few hours play there. Probably not many of your a better game player than I. But a genuinely entertaining game. Good, interesting plots. Definite cliffhanger. Fully expecting a sequel. But genuinely enjoyable game mechanics. Really, really, really good. And also Ape Out, which is a really simple game. But I love the way. So the way it plays is it basically each series of levels or section of the game is an album, which I didn't get when we first saw it. So the first album will have, say, let's call it 12 tracks to it. And so each level that you play is a track from the album because it's got the jazz soundtrack to it. So the jazz soundtrack changes from track to track, and the percussion is all of your kills in the improv jazz sort of style. But you go through a level and it tells you the next track playing. And then you get halfway through the album and it gives you this whole little switching to side B cassette sort of style, tells you the next album.
Nice. But
they get more and more intense towards the end, the soundtracks. And I thought, I finished the album and I thought, oh, Christ, I've done the game. And then it gave me the option of the next album. And then I finished that one and I got another album. And it's really cool. And for me, playing it on the train with my headphones on, turned up probably a bit too loudly for the fellow commuters around me, but screw them. It's a really lovely little time killer. So Switch is the format for it, actually, which is good because it's the main format it's on. But yeah, definitely recommend that to anyone out there with a Switch who just wants a fun time killer. There's a lot more playtime on that than Yakuza. Katana. Worth a go. Enjoyed those.
Cool. All right then. So it was a few weeks ago now, but there's been more. It's kind of an unfolding story that we'll probably tap into as it more reveals itself. But essentially, there were some specs for the new PlayStation leaked. Not really leaked. It was actually
given out in a formal interview with a magazine would be the way I would put it.
But I mean, they're like target specs, aren't they? It's kind of the ballpark they're going for. But then I guess they are. It has since been. It seems to be like we're going to. They reckon that the new PlayStation will kind of launch sometime next year, probably at the back end of next year, I think. But yeah, should we go through what these specs are?
Are you going technical here, or are we just talking capabilities? Because one's a lot more interesting than the other. If you're going to start reading out the processors.
Yeah, well, they were going. I mean, basically, they're saying that they're going to go for like 8K graphics, which just makes me angry, and ray tracing, and solid state drives. I mean,
to be
all of
fair,
this,
the 8K graphics is saying it's got a capability to do it, so that when the next generation of TVs come out, they're saying they're ready. Sony also sell TVs. They're not saying everything's going to be in 8K. They're saying it's got a capability to output to that.
Yeah, but I mean, I really wish that they could use, like, they could measure it in better terms, like, as in, we can do 60 frames per second as standard at 4K.
Depends on the game.
Would be much more appealing than 8K, you know, I guess, but then I see why they do that, because they're in the business of selling TVs. So,
but there's the load times bit that fascinated me.
Well, I just think it's one of those things that they have to do, because it's just the bandwidth is it's like an order of magnitude, isn't it? All of this stuff, it's like back in the day, like the PlayStation 2 had to have a faster drive in it than the PlayStation 1 in order to shift that amount of, you know, and exponentially more RAM. So, I mean, as soon as you say...
Well, you mean it had to be an upgrade from the previous model?
Yeah. Yeah, and so...
Wow.
I mean, because basically, like, because the graphics are kind of increasing, everything else has to increase around it. Do you see?
Yeah. Yeah, at the end of the day, you've got these game worlds coming out. But the bit that interested me, so they're talking about... we talk about the bandwidth. But the way they're describing it is the next generation of consoles, because I'm not going to say that Microsoft won't come up with an equivalent. The intention is to make loading times a thing of the past, which I can only applaud.
Yeah.
So they're talking about Spider-Man they used as a technical example, didn't they? So when you fast-travelled in Spider-Man, that bit where he's on the tube, but the reason he's on the tube, but the reason when you fire up a game, it shows you this screen and this screen and this screen, it's because it's frantically...
It's buffer loading, isn't it?
Yeah. It's doing the swan thing, looking serene on the top and frantically paddling away under the water, right?
Yeah.
So in this particular case, they said Spider-Man on the PS4, if you do a fast travel one point of the city to another point of the city, it takes about 12 seconds to be able to load up that bit of the city to get it in. So you've got a 12-second animation, and it looks smooth and it looks cool. But the point is, with the new technology, it's loading in 0.8 of a second that same data set to be ready. You don't any longer need the fast travel animation. You just need just a 0.8 second photo of Spider-Man's face or whatever. You could literally basically go in from the menu, load up the game, and go straight to the which save game do you want screen. None of that graphical stuff while it tries to get everything in the background, and you could just go. And I think that's really appealing.
Yeah.
The animation will be slower than the actual loading.
Yeah, well, I'll give you a point of reference here just to show how this is not really a new thing. Bayonetta, I played on the Xbox 360 when it first came out, or the demo at least. And in that game, the load screens enabled you to practice the combos. So while it's loading, your character's there, and you can do, you can like learn the button prompts, or it'll just tell you, like, give you some, like, show you some of the new moves you made, and you could just have a go fighting some random enemies while it loads in the rest of the level.
ZX Spectrum did that, Rob. When there were certain games on the ZX Spectrum, in the loading screens, it took 5 to 10 minutes to load from the cassette. But there were a couple of games that had a little mini game like Snake kind of thing, or a Frogger game that you could play while it was loading, and that was a revelation.
I remember Ridge Racer did that as well, didn't it? I think it had Gallagher or something like that at the start, and one of the Tekken games did that. Yeah,
Namco trademarked that shit, and it only recently expired, their trademark. But before we digress completely...
I was quite enjoying that part.
Point. Okay, I just wanted to finish my point. My point was that when Bayonetta was re-released on the PC quite recently, those load screens, they were up for like a second. Like they'd load in, and then, because it was so completely dependent on the speed of your hard drive.
Oh, absolutely.
On an SSD, those load screens would pop up and then disappear immediately because it was already loaded.
But then, and that's the whole point. But Bayonetta's quite an old game. Spider-Man is a very recent game. And on the current console hardware, and absolutely, if you've got a full bastard spec gaming machine, you'd expect that to be semi-instant. But the point is, the next generation of consoles will be equivalent to full bastard specs. And then what's going to happen is they're going to bring out games that have got even more pain to throw at the console, and then the loading screens will come back in, and the PS6 will come in, or streaming, because we'll never see another console or whatever, and it'll get worse and worse. But it's a step up.
That's it. I mean, and that's why it's boring to really talk about the exact specifications. It's more the implication. And I think SSDs, the inclusion of them goes some way to sort of express that the whole installing the game on your console is definitely not going away. That's just going to intensify. And I think there's going to be less and less reliance on physical media as a delivery device. It speaks to a ever more digital future, I think, in terms of actual delivery.
We will see, but it will be interesting to see what E3 gives us in the terms of visual and technical treats this year.
Well, it won't be this because they're not there.
This is very true, but there might be some other things.
Well, that's very true, and we will get to that shortly.
Well, they've got their own platform now, and they've clearly shown that they don't care so much about waiting for E3 to drop some bombshells.
Or they don't want to pay for the stand, and they're going to do something along those lines. But actually, the other interesting thing, an article I read today was talking about backwards compatibility on PS4.
Okay. What's that?
So what they were saying, because this was from some sort of Sony investors call, is that the PS5, or whatever they call it, PS4 games, the backwards compatibility is going to be there to the extent that I'm assuming it's games like Battlefield, but there's no detail. It might only be PlayStation exclusives. There's no particular detail. But on a PS4, you'll be able to play the same games as your mates are still playing on the if you've bought PS5 and you've been online game, let's call it Overwatch. Let's say you're playing Overwatch on the PS4 at the moment. You've got a load of mates you play with, but you get a PS5. You are still going to be able to play that version of Overwatch and continue to play with your PS4 mates, but using your PS5. So we're talking cross-generational compatibility, which I think is pretty cool.
So it's like you upgraded your PC rather than bought a new console, pretty much.
Exactly that. But it's an interesting one, because if you think about the switch from PS3 or Xbox moving up to the next one, you had to wait for your mates to all have to be able to be on that console. But you can, with your shiny new console, having traded in your older one, still keep playing with your mates. And I think that's going to be, I would expect to see that from Microsoft as well, because they can't not.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, that sounds really interesting. Yeah, I don't know about the whole backwards compatibility. It's good for that kind of thing. I mean, I think they're just trying to remove that whole which console are my mates buying type thing. You know, because that's the big thing that's really screwed over a lot of games in the past, is that everyone's gone, oh shit, I bought the wrong console.
Also, I think it might be more to do with the architecture, because with the PlayStation, each time they brought out something new, the whole architecture method of making games changed so much.
Yeah,
to the point where they said PS2 was fucking terrible to build.
PS3 with the cell.
No, it's PS3,
Yeah, it was a custom GPU or something.
It was horrible to build for. So that's why the backwards compatibility was really an issue, and it was just, you know, having to add that on top of everything else. And that was why you kind of had some games that weren't multi-format, because they're essentially building, rather than porting games into different consoles, you were building separate entities of an entire game from the ground up. What
will be really interesting for me is whether that's purely download games that retain that, or whether, you know, I've got a number of games I've got in physical media, only a handful of them are online games, but if the backwards compatibility means that, you know, my copy of Horizon Zero Dawn for PlayStation 4, I can put in my PlayStation 5 and play. That's quite a big thing to me, because it means I can get rid of my old console and still be able to replay the games without having to rebuy them.
Yeah,
which Xbox have been so much better at.
Yeah,
it's probably going to be software emulation, isn't it? I imagine, rather than hardware, because they're loath to go down the internal extra hardware route again.
Well,
because that's what pushed the original PS3 through the roof, price-wise.
No, but the thing is, it's the PlayStation 3. The PlayStation 4 is just a PC, basically.
Yeah.
So it's fine. They can totally. It will just be like, yeah, it should just work. The thing about the PS3 is that, yeah, it was based on that custom architecture.
Yeah, what was it called? The Hive or something weird like that? Or
it was the cell chip. It was the cell
processor,
chip.
That was it.
However, one thing just occurs to me, how I think because they realised that they had to get all those people on board to write stuff specifically for PS3, and like a lot of studios, you know, agreed to just focus on the PlayStation because it was technically more powerful, I think. I wonder if they're still reaping the rewards of that now because of the efforts
the efforts they went to lock down all those development studios to create all those exclusive games. You know, I think like they're still reaping the rewards of that, even if that chipset was a bitch to develop for back in the day.
I think Microsoft have changed the game from the last E3, where they mentioned they're buying a number of really quite interesting studios for exclusives. And if they don't screw this up, they're going to. There's going to be some. I think there's going to be a greater level of parity on the next generation around exclusives, because I think they really missed a trick at the start of this generation. But I think they've learned from their mistakes, so that's going to be.
They went for timed exclusivities rather than actually getting studios in, didn't they?
Exactly that, but they bought studios now.
Didn't really pan out.
Yeah. Not really, because people can wait.
Yeah, and whilst they're waiting, they're playing another game.
Exactly. Anyway, we've mentioned E3 a few times, so shall we segue into our bold and crazy predictions?
Oh, I think that would be a possibility.
Cool, okay. Well, so E3's about a month away, and the hype train is beginning to gather momentum. We've already got... We've already got a little bit of an idea of what might be there. Some stuff's literally been revealed, wholesale revealed. But I just wonder if... I've kind of grouped my predictions by the studios. Obviously, we've not got Sony this year. And we've also not got EA turning up with their tails between their legs. Or trying to... Although I think they are having a minor presence there at their own little event, because they are going to be apparently revealing the new Star Wars game. But I'm jumping the gun here.
But they'll probably do that under Microsoft.
Yeah, well, that one of my theories is that Microsoft, like any third-party stuff, like, say, maybe Cyberpunk, I think that's all going to be at the Xbox conference.
Ooh.
Well, bearing in mind, last year Xbox had that little custom bit right at the end of their briefing.
Yeah, it was on that one before,
Cyberpunk,
wasn't it?
So, but I'll tell you what, let's, as Rob suggested, should we start with the wild and crazy? And I don't think Cyberpunk appearing in the Microsoft conference is quite crazy enough. What are you thinking, Rob? What have you got? You got a list, haven't you?
I've got a few. I've got a couple of bold ones.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll just do my first one. My first bold prediction is that that Bethesda at their conference, they're going to do something with Fallout 76, and I feel like what they're going to do is kind of Trojan horse a free to play announcement in amongst the announcement of a shitload of updates to it.
I don't think that's too crazy and left field, to be honest. No one's going to pay for that game, but they might play it when it's free to play.
And improved.
Can I go for my one that I think is at least a bit more radical?
Okay, go on then.
I think we're going to see a new console. Not a new PlayStation, not a new Xbox, not a new Nintendo, but a new console. I think it would be a... Yeah, I don't know who's going to make
Google?
It. Well, Google have already announced that, but that's a streaming service. I don't think of that as a console.
But do you think they'll crash the party? That's what I was thinking.
Who would? Sorry,
Google.
I missed that.
Google.
Google are doing their streaming thing. That's their I wonder if if they might have a presence there.
That's what I mean. Would they crash the party and sort of go, well,
Google might, but they've already announced it. But I'm actually talking about something outside of anything we know about.
Not like an NVIDIA. console.
I'm wondering if one of the other tech giants would jump in. Whether it's Samsung,
free.
I know. I'm guessing Sony aren't planning to. Sorry, not Sony. Sega aren't planning to jump back in with the Mega Drive Plus Plus Plus.
They are
Hyperdrive.
doing a little Mega Drive.
No,
thing,
I know. But this, I'm talking a new powerful contender against the three consoles out there.
Okay.
I think
he's sweating.
I think that'd be an interesting one.
That you've gone fully gonzo there, mate.
Damn right. I thought we were going for the outrageous predictions, not Fallout 76 going free to play.
We haven't.
I tell you what, though,
we haven't all been playing Rage, mate. Come on.
I tell you what, as crazy as and left field as that is, what a tear to the eye that would bring if you had a console brought out as a joint venture between Sega and Nintendo.
Oh, what, like joining forces?
Just a home unit, a limited whatever one-off thing.
I don't think.
I don't know.
I don't think Nintendo needs Sega.
Hey, this is the crazy section.
Yeah,
Tinfoil hats are firmly on.
Yeah.
Or the bit where Nintendo's bought Microsoft or Microsoft's bought Nintendo, because there's all talk. There's all this talk about collaboration between those two.
Yeah.
There's rumour that there was rumour. Some people have been saying that Xbox Live might come to Switch because they're that they could deal with their online thing because Nintendo sucks.
Nintendo's online service sucks balls, but that doesn't mean Microsoft's the answer.
No,
but it would be quite interesting to see. I mean, we've had news in the last couple of days that the Ouya, or however it's pronounced, that little Android console that tried to be a bit of a disruptor, that they've shut down the game stores or shutting them down. But it would be quite interesting to see if another party wants to come in and join the market.
Like
at the moment,
Huawei.
It is literally Huawei. Maybe comes with the spyware installed. That'd be cool.
I think
Samsung.
Samsung,
as an example.
I don't think they'd do anything without like a partner. And I think if Samsung were going to do it, it would just be like another Ouya that would be like Android based, probably.
Yeah.
I like the idea of like Google like rocking up and gate crashing the party. I can with like a few exclusives, like say that's
Apple.
Imagine if Stadia get like Cyberpunk exclusivity or something. That would be pretty good. Yeah,
that would probably be genuinely bonkers.
Yeah, and you'd buy one.
Or they partner with like Alienware or some weird shit. So it's like they do something weird. So it's like a hybrid, and they'll start selling custom TVs that have got a shitload of PC hardware in there, and it all just goes a bit bonkers. Teamed up with like Samsung, so maybe it'd be like a Samsung Alienware hybrid TV powered by Google Stadia.
The other alternative would be someone like Epic.
Let me adjust my hat.
You look at what Steam tried to do with the Steam box.
Yeah.
It would be quite interesting to see if Epic put something out as an example. So it's a Steam box sort of style, but Epic are clearly jumping. Is it Epic? The Fortnite publisher, who are clearly taking Steam on. What if they stepped further into the forefront? That'd be interesting.
They need to offer like about 80% of what Steam offers first, like as in functionality wise. There's nothing on that store.
Yeah, but they're buying up all the exclusives regardless.
They are, yeah. I actually they had a sale running and they had like free games. They've got some good free games on there at the moment.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I your Essex accent throws me. I thought you meant they had a sale and it had an entire 3 games. That's not really a sale. That's just a discount on 3 games.
That's like when you go to the pub and they say they only have 2 pint glasses available.
Been there.
Clean and dirty.
Yeah. Okay, all right. So, my predictions aren't that gonzo, but I'm going to go out on a limb here. And I'm just being like hopelessly and futilely optimistic and say that maybe Square might show that Avengers game that they are apparently working on, and I think they would show that on the Xbox conference.
Wow.
Because Square's is quite a small deal.
I saw a rumour about a game, and it was linked to an author of a show that's recently come to an end. George R. R. Martin teaming up with
From Software, yeah.
I'm more thinking this might be a backdoor way of announcing Bloodborne 2. Because you announced this strange Dark Souls-y type medieval game, and off the back of that, you get a flash of something else. Because they have been teasing this bloody game since, well, the first one came out. And everyone's been asking anything to do with FromSoft. Is that Bloodborne 2? Because no one knows whether it's going to carry on being a Victorian story, the style of the old one. People thought that Sekiro Shadows Die Twice could have been it.
Well,
From have previously been teased.
From have confirmed they're working on 2 games. From have confirmed they're working on 2 games. And I think, actually, Bloodborne 2 is a solid shout. Really solid shout.
There is a problem with this. Sony are not there.
No. Yeah, but I'm also predicting multi-platform.
It's Sony's. It's an exclusive. Sony.
No, Bloodborne 1 was, just like Titanfall, was an Xbox exclusive. Doesn't mean the sequel is not.
Okay, yeah, right, fine.
Is Sekiro exclusive?
Sekiro, I thought, was multi-platform. It's the other.
Activision.
It's Ghosts of Tsushima. That's PlayStation exclusive. Yeah.
So FromSoft have been working on like multi-platform games now.
The
last
Dark
one was with Activision.
All the Dark Souls games are multi-platform. You know, it was only Bloodborne that I think was a PlayStation exclusive.
Yeah, it was. I think Sony would just like make one of those for us.
Maybe they've expanded it and allowed it to go out, but they'll keep something special for themselves. So the PlayStation will have an exclusive version of it, like a bonus material or whatever. But the rest of it would be multi-platform.
Yeah, I noticed that all of the like Heavy Rain, all of those games, that studio, they're all coming to PC now.
I know who you mean, but I can't remember the studio.
David Cage.
Quantic Dream, I think is the name, isn't it? Yeah, all of the Quantic Dream games, including Detroit, which I have and will be able to report back on soon.
One day.
I've seen that.
They're all on the Epic Store. So, yeah, I don't know if they've got exclusive on that, but I was quite surprised. So, yeah, that would be an interesting development, because I was just thinking, when was the last time a Sony exclusive was available anywhere else? And so, yeah, it seems like maybe they're easing off on that a little. Depends how valuable. I mean, I can't see Uncharted coming out on PC anytime.
Can I have another prediction?
Go on then.
So, you mentioned Bethesda earlier. I think in the Bethesda conference, and there are some rumours supporting this, only rumours, I'm expecting Fallout New Vegas remastered. Hopefully rebuilt in the latest version of the engine. Obviously, they use the same engine over and over, but they obviously update the assets and all of that stuff. And I think there was something put on one of the, I think it was the US Amazon store, a placeholder for a new Fallout game that a little while ago Metro Gaming reported on it.
Isn't it?
So there's something coming up, and Bethesda are also probably feeling quite bad about 76, or at least not bad. They probably don't care about that so much, but they do know there's been some reputational damage. There's not going to be Fallout 6 anytime, Fallout 5 anytime soon. That's not even been confirmed. But a remaster of one of their finest Fallout games would be an attractive option. And I would love to see that on the Switch. Give me Fallout New Vegas on the Switch.
Bring a fan favourite back, and you win over the fans again, and you get back to that base of power with your fans, having your back, and then you move forwards. It kind of sounds like a logical move.
I reckon Fallout 5 might even be made in a similar way, like farmed out, because on their roadmap now they've got that Starfield game and the next Elder Scrolls. So I don't understand how they're going to make another Fallout game. I think they were hoping that 76 would be, something that the foundations of something that they could build upon. But obviously that didn't go quite the way they wanted it to. So.
Well, it's an interesting point. You mentioned Starfield. So last year basically confirmed that Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6 are going to be next generation.
Yeah.
Now, Sony have announced the next generation. Microsoft will announce the next generation. I don't think it's even worth us talking about in speculation for that. Right? They're going to confirm it there.
Yeah, they're going to have a new console or something they're going to show us. Yeah.
It's Project Scarlet at the moment.
So, is it time to see something of Starfield? Because we know Starfield is going to come out before Elder Scrolls 6. So, I'm wondering if we'll actually get some detail on what the hell that's all about.
That would certainly make us all forget about the shambles of 76, wouldn't it?
76 was a massive disappointment, but I did love the cover of Country Roads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the best thing about that, which unfortunately I don't think it's even in the game.
Man. I've got some Ubi predictions.
Well, Watch Dogs 3 will be set in London, because that's not a prediction, to be honest. To me, that's fact.
Yeah, that's true. Also, fact, they'll be showing something of the new Ghost Recon Breakpoint game that they recently announced, the follow-up to Wildlands. That's definitely going to have some time on their stage. And also, apparently, one of the developers working on the new Splinter Cell game made a tweet saying that he was working on the new Splinter Cell game, which then got taken down.
Yeah, he was out drinking. Were a couple of creative directors out drinking together, saying they were. Yeah.
And then I think that got taken down, and Ubisoft said, "Don't worry about him. He's just having a silly, funny joke." So yeah, maybe we'll see some Splinter Cell on the Ubisoft stage as well.
I played a Splinter Cell game years ago, and I seem to recall enjoying it, but we're talking 14 years ago, I reckon.
I went back just after I moved into this place, actually. The game I was playing at the time was, I forget the name of it, but it was the most recent one. And that was all right. Yeah, I think they'd done their usual to what they'd done with a lot of games, which is milk down the central concept by allowing you to play it however you want. So you could play it pretty much like an action game as long as you used all the mechanics blazing that were there. Yeah, there was like this, the mark, and they've had it for a couple of games where it's like this mark and dispatch mechanic where you can sort of tag a few guys and then wait for the moment they're all in the same vicinity and press a button and it takes them all out at once. So yeah, I think, I've played all of the games. And I wouldn't mind playing one slightly more recently after it's released, because I think there'd been a good 4 or 5 years before I got to the last one, but I got to it in the end. It had been on my fucking Steam library for God knows how long. So it's Ubisoft. We might see something about Skull and Bones. That's been in development for ages.
Skull and Bones has been postponed till 2020 later, and they've confirmed they're not showing anything about that.
Do you think that maybe they've expanded it slightly then?
I think they've realised it needs to be more.
Yeah,
I thought they delayed it until the 11th of November.
It might be. I think it's a little after that.
Yeah, they just need to make a pirate game like Black Flag that isn't Black Flag.
Yeah, but they're making a multiplayer pirate game that isn't Black Flag, and whether they've delayed it to focus on a good quality single player campaign. If that's the case, brilliant. Crack on.
Yeah, I'm not really too worried about the multiplayer stuff, to be honest.
No.
Other games that I think will show on the Microsoft stage, I've already mentioned Cyberpunk. I reckon we'll get Borderlands 3 on there, definitely, because they'll be wanting to shift that. I think there's going to be something new for Halo, and probably something to do with Gears as well.
Well, Borderlands 3, as you say, Borderlands 3 is expected out in autumn. So yeah, if not on Microsoft, we'll see it somewhere.
Yeah, they're going to be. I think they'll be really pushing that big time. Like, here's more Borderlands.
There's a new because they used it on last E3. They had it as a worldwide exclusive for the Xbox One X when they launched Dragon Ball Fighters or something like that. Actually, no, it was the year before that. There's a new Dragon Ball game that's been teased by I think it's Bandai Namco. And they've just called it Project Dragon Ball, and it seems to be like the entire universe or something like that. And then we don't really know. It was just something that was just teaser trailered, but I would expect that to be on the Xbox One. there is one thing I'm pretty much hoping and praying I'll see more of.
Final Fantasy
Square
7
Enix one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm sitting here watching the trailer.
Just a
again.
guess.
I've seen it about 1,500 times. Sony absolutely sent me into a state with their state of play. And just dropping that trailer, I was like, you fucking kidding me? you just dropped this out of nowhere.
What trailer is this, sorry?
Final Fantasy VII Remake trailer, which dropped at the start of May.
Yeah.
I was not expecting that. I really was not.
Yeah, they might show that. Is that on PlayStation only?
I think so.
I don't think it's been touted as that because it's not been given any PlayStation kind of marketing associated with it.
I think what I would say
if it
is
PlayStation usually show it, but I think it'll be on the Square Enix stand. It'll be on the Square Enix show.
Yeah, they've got their own. What's going to be interesting, and the other thing we haven't covered is so Sony are not at E3.
No.
And they've also confirmed that they won't be giving more details about the PS5 around E3.
No.
But that does not mean they won't be doing some sort of, just like Nintendo do their little broadcasts, around the same time.
Yeah.
So whilst they might not be, what they've said is they won't be giving more PlayStation 5 detail around then. So we're not expecting the big reveal at that point. But that doesn't mean they're not going to just drop a load of information around that time. Maybe just after, maybe just before.
Yeah.
Because they must be planning to counter whatever Microsoft are doing. So I'm expecting a something shortly after E3 from Sony with a load of big announcements.
Yeah. We're seeing the return of arrogant Sony, I think they've been called now, where they've realised that they're winning. So
I think they're just playing a different game.
We don't care. Yeah, I know, but they kind of had a point where once they knew they were ahead in the console war, they were like, you know what, we don't care anymore. We can do our own thing now. We're less worried about the competition. And there's generally, from what I've seen of, Twitch people that have been in the industry and know people at Sony and stuff like that, there's definitely an air of confidence going on through the company at the moment. So who knows what's going on, in terms of exclusivities, games, console specs, whatever. But there is definitely a positive and, I jokingly said, arrogant buzz going around the company at the moment. So who knows?
Now, you raised an interesting point. And so I was talking about earlier about the studios Microsoft have bought, one of whom is an exceptionally talented one who are putting out a game soon called The Outer Worlds.
Oh, yeah.
Now, that is... oh, Christ, what are they called, Rob? Help me.
What, Obsidian?
Obsidian, thank you. Now, Obsidian have confirmed The Outer Worlds is going to be multi-platform. But seeing as they've been bought by Microsoft, I'm expecting to see more of the Outer Worlds at Microsoft, including Microsoft exclusive content on the game.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
So Outer Worlds is expected out November-ish, I think. So I think that's going to be in the Microsoft conference, and I think they're going to be telling us why you should be buying it on Xbox.
Yep, that's true. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Any other predictions? I think we're going to kind of end this with our thoughts on what we think 2020 or 2019/2020 will be the year of. Are we ready to move on to that?
I think we might see GTA 6. Everyone's been talking about it.
Ooh.
But I think we might see a view of GTA
kinky.
6.
Yeah, that might
It's
get
been away
mentioned.
for a little while. It's kind of like a Return of the King sort of thing.
Yeah, the only time I can remember GTA having a big airing at E3 was when Peter Moore, the then president of Microsoft Games, revealed the GTA 4 tattoo. He got tattooed with it.
But that's what I mean, because Xbox are looking to try and make this their show, with Sony being away, they could announce it, not as a console exclusive, but they could be the first people to announce that there's going to be a GTA 6.
Yeah, the
which
only
would still
reason
help them win E3, even if Sony aren't there.
The only reason that they made any big deal about that was because up until then, GTA had been famously exclusive to PlayStation. And it was when the Xbox 360 came out and they went, yeah, and it will have GTA on it.
Yeah.
And it didn't come out for another, 2 years after that. But it did come out on that. And I think that was one of those that was one of those announcements that got a lot of people excited and on board with Xbox. Because
But it's all about perception, though. It's the thing. It's more than just it's point scoring.
Yeah.
If they announce it first, people say, "Oh, it was on their broadcast," because no one knows what Sony are going to come up with. Like you said, a couple of weeks or the day after E3 or whatever. They know they've got a new console, so they basically might just go in with guns blazing and just see what they can do, because they have no idea what the retort is going to be.
No, Sony always let Microsoft go first. It's tradition. So, yeah.
2 things from me. Quick fire ones. If Ubisoft doesn't start their conference with dancing pandas this year, I'm going to turn it off. Right?
Right.
E3 was amazing. And the other one, if Devolver don't put out something utterly deranged and highly entertaining, I'm going to be totally upset. I'm thoroughly looking forward to both of those ones, just because those two know how to entertain you.
Oh, Devolver will be the conference of the week, definitely.
Yeah, Devolver I'm definitely tuning into. And Ubisoft, because, like I say, it's the Just Dance franchise, I know, that leads to the Dancing Pandas and all of that stuff, but God, that was a cracking start.
They put entertainment first. And
actually, that's how they seem to be doing a lot of their games recently, which I like. I've got a lot of time for Ubisoft. Ubisoft particularly, I know you've been playing the older Assassin's Creed and you're starting to catch up.
Yeah,
they've moved away from what is known as the Ubisoft formula. Climb a tower, unlock an area, do this, do that, follow all the tiny little map things. They've genuinely moved away from that, and they seem to be focusing on fun. And it's good.
Cool. Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to cracking into that, into some of the newer era Assassin's Creed stuff. But anyway, we're going to try and come up with what we think, because it seems that this year has been very much like the year of
Battle Royale.
Post-apocalyptic shooter.
No, Battle Royale was last year. This year's been here's your new apocalyptic shooter. Yes. So I'm gonna kick off. I've got 2 thoughts. I think it's either going to be the year of the new consoles being announced and everyone getting into a froth about that.
Well, that's guaranteed. Come on, something more interesting. Come on.
Okay, well then I just cast my beady eye over what games are actually in development for 2020. And the 2 that jump out to me are the remake of System Shock and Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2.
Oh, yes.
Both of which are first-person RPGs, immersive sims with, those kind of emergent gameplay. So it looks like we might be having a little bit of a renaissance of the old immersive sim genre. Yeah, well, I mean, I guess that's, if we're counting it 19 to 20, yeah. So I think we might be getting some decent first-person RPGs at last. That
would be a delight for me, particularly if we see Starfield as well, which will be one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we'll see that for a little while.
It'll be one of the early releases on the next generation of consoles.
Yeah, cool. So that's me. That's all I've really got on that.
So I'm hoping and praying. Actually, Year of the RPG would be an absolute delight for me. But I'm randomly I'm going to go for Year of the Samurai / Ninja. I want to see. So we've got Ghost of Tsushima coming out at some point, and I know we've had a couple of games out this year, but I'd like to see some genuine fighty but interesting cultural games coming out on that sort of side. So we've got actually this is coming out soon. I think it's a Sega game, the new Total War.
Oh, Three Kingdoms.
Three Kingdoms, similar sort of thing. But I'd like.
Yeah, it's out this week.
Bit early then, is it?
But that's a Total War. But I know what you're talking about theme wise.
Yeah.
You've got Neo 2 is in development, and that's kind of a bit slashy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Bayonetta 3 That's another kind of
Not quite a samurai,
action.
but I see where you're coming from. Yeah,
yeah, like a Eastern
Hack
kind
and
of thing.
slash.
Yeah.
See, I misunderstood the point of it, and I kind of was thinking more about what E3 was going to be the year of, like in terms of the announcements.
Well,
And
it's not too. I mean, it is kind
it's
of that
open
as
to
well.
interpretation,
Yeah.
old chap.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I kind of went with the year of reimagined games as opposed to necessarily remakes. So off the back of Resident Evil 2, how they've basically had the opportunity to then redo the game with the latest graphics engine, but also tweak it and change it and rebuild it in ways that they couldn't do before.
And you never know, you might see Final Fantasy VII done that way.
Well, I'm kind of thinking you'll probably get Resident Evil 3 announced.
Oh,
The reimagined version of that, and maybe a few others. Maybe others have realised how well it's doing and stuff, and just simply from the reaction to it.
Let's see
it's been
Fallout New
genuinely
Vegas
positive.
reimagined.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why when you said it, I was kind of biting my lip a bit and going. But yeah. I genuinely think it might be the year where a lot of companies take their sort of either their franchise product that have done really well and bring out a reimagined version of it.
yeah, that's not a bad shout. It's maybe just reminded me, actually. Apparently, there was, like World of Warcraft, there was that illegal server that had like the original version of it running.
Yeah.
Well, Blizzard told them to take it down, cease and desist. So they took it down, and now they've launched their own one. And they said, just as a courtesy, let us know if there are any problems. And apparently the list of bugs is basically like the list of bugs that they fixed in all the years that they've been developing WoW. So they're like, you wanted it, there it is. Warts and all.
Wow.
Sorry, it's kind of the opposite of what you're talking about, but it just
that's
bounces
quite
into my
funny, though.
brain for some reason. It's hilarious.
I just love the fact that there are people like keeping the servers going. It's like when Phantasy Star Online was on the Dreamcast and that went offline, and I was playing Blue Burst. I think it was a version on the PC. I was playing that for about 3 years afterwards. They just kept it going.
Yeah. Oh, it's mad.
I love it when people do that.
Yeah. Sorry, I've digressed slightly.
No, sorry.
Digressions are acceptable.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like games actually announced for 2020 right now, there's not a lot here. I'm sure we're going to find out much more soon.
Off the back of what I was saying earlier about the Square Enix one, I also think we might hear a launch title. Not a launch title, a due date for the first part of the remake of Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, it's
Simply
about
because-
time.
Simply because after they dropped that trailer, they did tweet saying that they were getting things ready.
Yeah, they're going
And
to
I
have to
reckon
follow
it'll
it
be
up.
December 20. I reckon it'll be December this year.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So, well, if it's not, it'll be early 2020.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I reckon it'll be 3 parts as well. Just like the 3 discs of the original. There'll be some sort of symbolism.
Yeah, they can't break it into too many pieces. They've said it's going to be sectional.
I reckon, yeah, because the original was for 3-disc game, it will literally be a 3-disc game.
And what'll be interesting is what they charge for it, because they've clearly spent a lot of time and effort, but if they charge 40 quid for the first part, not biting.
They will. And like a muggins, I'll buy it.
I'm going to get Final
All of
Fantasy
it.
12 for my Switch soon. That's just come out, and that looks like
I
a...
want to get 9.
What, 12?
9 I did on my Vita a couple of years ago. That was a delight, but 12 is there and ready to play on the Switch, and I reckon that's going to be a
bloody
proper
hell.
time sink.
I keep looking at 9 on the Nintendo store and thinking,
Yeah, the only one I've played is 8.
Oh, Rob, you're a
Apparently,
Philistine.
I know.
I've still not finished 15, so I'm even more of a Philistine. But apparently the Royale Edition, they changed up the combat, where you
Okay.
could switch between the characters at any point.
A Royal
Okay.
Edition of
Oh, Final Fantasy 15.
15. Okay, didn't touch.
There was a version they brought out where they changed up the combat, and people are thinking it could be that they're using for this remake, because it looks like you can switch characters and stuff according to the trailer.
Who can say? Who can say?
Yeah, we'll have to wait.
Indeed. I'm out of gas now. I think we've
Me too.
kind of hit that round the head enough. And so shall we call it there?
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Not Playing Podcast, part of the Not Listening Podcast Network, where you can also find the Not Watching Podcast, where we talk about movies and TV, and the Not Listening Podcast, where you can hear Adam and Co. talk about all kinds of nonsensical nonsense. You can email us at notplayingpodcast@gmail.com, or you can tweet at or follow us on Twitter at notplayingpod. You can find the show notes for all our shows at notlistening.co.uk, and if you like what you've heard here, please do leave us a review. Anyway, that's all for now. Until next time, bye!
With no booty, my friend, I'm inclined to agree, 'cause I suck